At 62, talk show legend Graham Norton, the man who made millions laugh for over 2 decades, has finally opened up about the guests he couldn't stand. For years, his BBC show has been the gold standard of celebrity interviews, filled with charm, chaos, and laughter. But behind those bright red chairs and effortless smiles, Graham was hiding a very different truth, that not every guest who graced his couch was pleasant to deal with. In a rare and unfiltered interview, Graham confessed that a handful of stars left him completely exhausted, some rude, some demanding, and a few who simply refused to play along with his trademark humor. For a host known for disarming even the biggest Hollywood egos, admitting that some guests were truly unbearable was a shock to fans. Who were they? Over the years, there have been hints, tense interviews, awkward silences, and moments where even Graham's wit couldn't save the night. From A-list actors who treated his staff poorly to pop icons who demanded control over the conversation, these encounters tested his patience like nothing else in his career. Now, for the first time, Graham Norton has confirmed what many fans suspected. 6 particular celebrities left him fuming long after the cameras stopped rolling. And as he explains what really happened behind the scenes, it becomes clear that even Britain's most beloved talk show host isn't immune to the darker side of fame. Because when the cameras turned off, the laughter often did too. Long before his show became a global sensation, Graham Norton built his reputation on something simple: making people laugh without taking himself too seriously. When the Graham Norton Show premiered in 2007, it quickly became a breath of fresh air among the stale, scripted talk shows of the time. His blend of cheeky humor, genuine curiosity, and spontaneous chaos turned celebrity interviews into moments audiences actually looked forward to. But even in those early days, Graham learned an uncomfortable truth. Not every star wants to have fun. In a recent conversation, Norton admitted that his first truly unpleasant experience came early in the show's run, with an A-list actor known for his method acting and serious approach to his craft. Without naming names, Graham described the guest as someone who arrived already in a bad mood. From the moment he walked onto the set, the atmosphere changed. The crew went silent, the laughter faded, and the easy banter Graham was famous for evaporated. According to production staff, the actor refused to join the famous red couch lineup with other guests, insisting he should be interviewed alone. He wouldn't participate in the light-hearted games or watch the viral clips the show was known for. He wanted a serious conversation, Graham recalled, but that's not what we do. We're not Newsnight, we're the Graham Norton Show. Things only got worse once cameras started rolling. The guest gave one-word answers, ignored jokes, and even rolled his eyes when other guests tried to lighten the mood. At one point, Graham tried to save the moment with a clever quip, but the actor cut him off, muttering, "Can we stay on topic?" The tension was so thick, even the audience grew quiet. After the show, Graham admitted it was the first time he considered walking off his own set. "I remember thinking, this is supposed to be fun, for everyone. If you don't want to play, why come on?" Behind the scenes, the crew reportedly agreed it was the most uncomfortable taping in the show's history. The footage was heavily edited before broadcast, cutting out long pauses and awkward exchanges. To the casual viewer, it looked like just another episode. But those who were there say it marked the beginning of Graham's unspoken blacklist, a mental list of guests he'd never invite back. That moment changed him. From then on, Norton became more selective. He still welcomed all kinds of guests, but he made sure they understood what his show was about: humor, energy, and connection. Those who didn't fit that spirit, he quietly avoided. Over the years, Graham has hinted that his patience for diva behavior only got thinner. "If someone walks in thinking they're too important to laugh," he once said, "they're in the wrong studio." While fans still speculate who that first difficult guest was, a few clues point toward an Oscar-winning actor known for his intensity, someone whose visit mysteriously never aired in full. Whoever it was, that encounter taught Graham a lasting lesson. Behind every big name is a personality, and not all of them shine when the spotlight hits. It wouldn't be the last time he faced a guest who tested his limits. In fact, as the show's fame exploded, the list of awkward, arrogant and downright hostile celebrities only grew longer. And the next one on his list? A Hollywood megastar whose ego nearly derailed an entire episode, and whose behavior stunned even the unflappable Graham Norton. By the time The Graham Norton Show became an international hit, the Red Couch had hosted everyone from pop icons to Oscar winners. Most guests embraced the chaos, swapping stories, laughing at themselves, and joining in on the jokes that made the show a fan favorite. But when one Hollywood megastar arrived in London to promote his new blockbuster, it quickly became clear that not everyone was there to have fun. Graham has never named him directly, but insiders say this guest was one of the biggest names in Hollywood, a leading man known for his temper, ego, and refusal to share the spotlight. From the very beginning, the atmosphere was tense. The star arrived with a massive entourage, demanded last-minute script changes, and even instructed producers not to let other guests interrupt him during his segment. That was the first time I saw my staff genuinely intimidated, Graham later admitted. We were used to divas, but this was different. He treated everyone like they worked for him. Once the cameras started rolling, things got worse. The segment began smoothly enough, with Graham offering his trademark mix of humor and warmth. But when he cracked a harmless joke about the actor's latest film, a quip the audience loved, the star's expression darkened. Instead of laughing, he turned to Graham and said sharply, "That's not funny." The room fell silent. For a few seconds, Graham tried to recover, laughing it off and moving on. But the damage was done. Throughout the rest of the interview, the guest interrupted others, talked over fellow actors, and even snapped at a fan question that Graham read aloud. Behind the scenes, producers were signaling frantically to wrap it up early. "I've had people be cold. I've had people be awkward," Graham later said. But he was the only guest who made me wish the show was live, so it could be over sooner. The most awkward moment came when the host tried to transition into one of his signature viral clips, a silly montage of the actor's early commercials. The audience roared with laughter. The guest, however, didn't. He glared at the screen, then muttered, "You think that's funny? I was working hard back then." Graham, trying to salvage the energy, replied, "We all start somewhere. I did puppets on Channel 4. The audience erupted again, but the guest's face stayed stone cold. That exchange, later heavily edited for television, became infamous within the BBC studios. Insiders say that once filming ended, the star stormed off the set without saying a word to Graham or the crew. One staff member later revealed that Norton walked back to his dressing room, sat down, and said quietly, "That's one episode I never want to see again." Despite the friction, the episode aired, though in a much shorter version than usual. Fans immediately noticed the strained atmosphere, and online forums lit up with speculation. To this day, no one from the production team has publicly confirmed the actor's identity, though fans have pointed fingers at a few well-known Hollywood names notorious for their on-set tempers. That encounter, Graham later reflected, reinforced a truth about fame he'd learned the hard way. The bigger the star, the smaller the patience. After that night, Graham made it clear that attitude mattered more than celebrity. "You can have 20 Oscars, but if you're rude to my crew, you're not welcome back," he said in an interview. Still, the experience didn't end there, because just when he thought he'd dealt with the worst guest of his career, another one came along. This time, a world-famous singer whose off-camera behavior was so shocking, even the BBC had to step in. Over the years, Graham Norton has handled every type of celebrity imaginable, from eccentric rock legends to painfully shy newcomers. But even he admits that nothing could have prepared him for the chaos caused by one global pop icon, whose diva behavior became the stuff of behind-the-scenes legend. It was supposed to be one of the show's biggest nights. The singer, known worldwide for record-breaking hits and a flair for drama, had agreed to appear for a rare live musical performance and interview. Fans flooded the studio. Producers doubled security. And yet, from the moment the star arrived, things began spiraling out of control. According to crew members, the first sign of trouble came when the singer refused to enter the green room. They wanted the lighting changed, the air conditioning turned off, and their personal stylist to sit in the audience, one staffer recalled. It was pure chaos before we even started rolling. When Graham went backstage to greet them, he was met with what he later described as frosty indifference. Instead of a handshake, he got a curt nod. The star reportedly complained about the seating arrangement, the order of guests, and even the color of the famous red couch, saying it clashed with their outfit. "I've dealt with divas before," Graham later joked, "but this was next level. It was like hosting royalty who didn't like the palace." Once on stage, the performance began smoothly, but the interview quickly went off the rails. Every question Graham asked seemed to irritate the singer. When he brought up their past controversies, light-heartedly as he always did, the star shot back, "Let's not go there, darling." The audience laughed nervously, thinking it was part of the act. It wasn't. Graham, ever the professional, tried to keep things light, joking, "We can go anywhere you like. It's your couch tonight." But instead of smiling, the pop star rolled their eyes and muttered into the mic, "You talk too much." For a moment, even Graham was stunned into silence. The rest of the show was painfully awkward. The singer barely acknowledged the other guests, refused to participate in the signature red chair segment, and at one point even asked for their microphone to be turned up louder than everyone else's. The studio audience could sense the tension, and so could the viewers at home, though most had no idea just how bad things were behind the scenes. After the taping, sources say the star's team demanded several portions of the interview be edited out before broadcast. The BBC reluctantly agreed, trimming nearly 10 minutes from the episode, the longest cut in the show's history. Graham himself later called it the longest hour of my career. He never invited that performer back. In later interviews, Norton hinted at the encounter, describing it as the most unpleasant chat I've ever had with someone famous. Without naming names, he said, "There's confidence, and then there's contempt. One makes for a great guest. The other makes you wish you were home doing the laundry." Fans have speculated for years about who the mystery guest might have been, with guesses ranging from pop queens to iconic male singers with a history of clashing with talk show hosts. But Graham, ever discreet, has refused to confirm. "You don't name names," he told The Times. "You just quietly never book them again." That night left a lasting mark on him. From then on, Graham's team became far more cautious when booking high-maintenance celebrities. He began focusing on guests known for humor and humility rather than fame alone. "A-listers are great," he said, "but kindness always trumps fame." And while the Pop Icons episode became infamous behind the curtain, it wasn't the only time Graham had to deal with a nightmare guest. Because just when he thought he'd seen it all, another celebrity walked onto his set, one who not only ignored every rule of etiquette, but nearly brought the entire production to a halt. For all of Graham Norton's charm, wit, and patience, even he admits there are moments that tested him to his absolute limit. But none were quite as disastrous as the night a Hollywood comedian turned what should have been a light-hearted, laughter-filled episode into what producers later called a nightmare to film and even worse to edit. The guest, a loud, unpredictable funnyman known for his wild antics and controversial humor, was brought on to promote his latest comedy movie. The producers expected big laughs. After all, chaos was part of Graham's brand. But what they got instead was an off-the-rails disaster that nearly got the entire episode pulled before it aired. From the moment the comedian arrived, things were tense. He showed up late, visibly intoxicated, and immediately began cracking crude jokes at the expense of the production staff. When a stagehand politely asked him to lower his voice before filming, he reportedly barked, "Do you know who I am?" Graham, ever the professional, tried to keep things moving. "I thought maybe once the cameras rolled, he'd snap into performance mode," Norton later recalled. But he didn't. He got worse. During the taping, the guest ignored Graham's questions, interrupted the other guests repeatedly, and veered into inappropriate topics that made even the unflappable host squirm. At one point, he used language so explicit that the BBC had to cut entire chunks of the interview to meet broadcast standards. "It was like babysitting a hurricane," Graham joked years later. "Every time I tried to steer the conversation, he'd crash it into a wall." Viewers watching the heavily edited version of the episode could still sense something was wrong. The laughter felt forced, the energy off. Online forums lit up that week with fans asking, "What happened to Graham's show tonight?" Behind the scenes, it was worse. During the final segment, the comedian grabbed Graham's cue cards, read ahead, and began mocking the script live on air. When Graham tried to take them back, the guest snapped, "Oh, come on, don't be so uptight." The audience gasped. For a moment, even Graham's trademark smile vanished. He later admitted that, for the first and only time in his career, he considered ending the show mid-filming. "I wanted to say, let's stop this, but I knew it would make the situation even more chaotic," he said. "So I gritted my teeth and got through it." After the cameras finally stopped, the studio went silent. The guest stumbled off stage, shouting to the audience, "You'll never forget me." He wasn't wrong. The crew certainly didn't. BBC executives were furious. The episode required nearly 40 minutes of cuts, and the network quietly decided that the comedian would never again appear on any of its talk shows. Graham agreed completely. "We don't need people who think they're the show," he said afterward. "The show works because everyone gets to shine, not just one loud voice." That night became the stuff of legend at BBC Television Centre, whispered about among production teams as the episode that almost didn't air, and though Graham never revealed the comedian's name, his comments in later interviews gave fans enough clues to speculate. When asked in one radio appearance if he ever truly disliked a guest, Norton simply smiled and said, "Oh, there's one. And he knows exactly who he is." That experience marked a turning point for the talk show host. Afterward, Graham took even greater control over guest selection. He focused on chemistry, respect, and personality over fame or controversy. "The best guests aren't the biggest stars," he said. "They're the ones who can laugh at themselves." And yet, even after all these awkward encounters, Norton remains as charming as ever, proof that kindness, humor, and quick wit can outlast even the worst nights on television. Because if there's one thing Graham Norton has shown the world, it's that even in the face of chaos, the show must and will go on.